Hello and welcome to this edition of The Market Share. I'm Paul Gifford, Chief Investment Officer at First Source Bank. Joining me today is Kurt Thompson, our Managing Director of the Family Office. As part of the investment process, we know that taxes are very important, both on the types of accounts that we manage and then how we make decisions in buying and selling securities. So I thought it'd be important today, Kurt, if you could give us some update on the current tax situation, particularly income taxes.
Sure, thanks, Paul. There has been a lot of debate over the last several years, and even in fact there was a lot of debate during the last election about taxes, one of our favorite topics. I wanted to show you kind of the major bullet points of things that didn't happen and some that did happen here in this next graphic. For example, one of the top topics that was discussed at the last election and heavily debated was the idea of long-term capital gains rates, which are securities that are held more than a year and sold for a gain. For a number of years, the highest rate has been at 20%. That did not change. We were all very concerned in the last election and going forward that that would change to almost double. They had discussed to 40% at one point in time. But the good news, it didn't change. That's still in place. The highest rate at 20% still remains for long-term capital gains. Secondly, individual income tax brackets, which affect us all, also did not change at all. There's still about 7 brackets. They were adjusted for inflation. So that's good news for all of us when we're paying our taxes. And the highest rate still remained at 37%. Again, a fairly high income taxpayer pays that, but those did not change as well, and they're still in place for 2023. Next is some topics related to estate and gift tax, which was a heavily debated topic as well in the last election. The annual gift tax exclusion that many of you may use every year to give to your kids or grandkids did get raised from $16,000 each year to $17,000. And for a married couple, that doubles to $34,000 per donee. So that's a good thing. It's not a huge increase, but it did go up, and this year it remains at $17,000 during 2023 as well. Lastly was a huge change to estate and gift tax laws, which states that when someone dies or during your lifetime you can give away a certain amount without paying any estate or gift tax. That almost raised up to $13 million, as you can see by this bullet point. It was around $12 million last year, so that's a much more than an inflation-adjusted amount. It's almost $1 million that it increased for an individual. And again, that's double for a married couple. So that's good news. The bad news is most likely the experts and we all think that in 2 years these provisions will expire or sunset, and it could be cut as much as in half of what you see here today in a couple years. So there's a lot of planning and debate of what to do in the next couple years for our clients and those people in that situation.
Well, Kurt, that's obviously great information and something that when we're managing the investment process that we have to take into consideration in helping out families. One of the biggest assets that our clients tend to have is an individual retirement account or an IRA. So Kurt, there were some changes most recently to the IRA and the rules, and how is that going to impact our clients?
Sure. So in this next slide, I talk about what really impact there is to IRAs and people who own IRAs, which are most all of us eventually in our lifetime will have an IRA or two. And what happened about 2 or 3 years ago, there was an act called the Secure Act. They come up with these clever names to make us feel good about changes to tax law, and this one is one of those. And it really is something that impacted IRAs significantly in regards to how they get paid out and when and in certain situations. So, for example, in this particular outline, you'll see that a lot of us remember when a few years ago it was age 70 and a half when you had to start taking money out. They forced you to start taking a minimum amount out called a required minimum distribution. Well, a couple years ago when the first Secure Act was signed, it raised the age to age 72. Well, they decided at the end of last year with the new Secure Act 2.0 to increase that age now to 73 going forward. So for example, if someone was turning 72 during last year, 2022, they still had to take money out. But if you're turning 72 this year, for example, I have a client who that was the case, he can really wait another year till he's 73 next year to start taking out the minimum required distribution. Nothing's changed about how that's calculated. There's a life expectancy table the IRS puts out. They've modified that because we're living longer, so that's a good thing. But you still have to take out the required minimum distribution. And then you'll see here by this particular outline as well that in about 10 years they're raising that age to 75 eventually, but that all could change. One thing I did want to mention that's not listed here is that a lot of our clients take advantage of using their money to give to charity when they're having to take the money out. And that's still available to people, and is something that a lot of our clients take an opportunity to utilize for tax planning to give their required minimum to a charity. Also, I wanted to show you in this next graphic how the new act affects inherited IRAs. If you have a decedent and your kids, for example, inherit your IRA. A couple of years ago, the IRS decided to make people start to take that money out over a certain period of time. In this example, I'm showing that the rule was a 10-year rule that you had to take money out over a 10-year period from a decedent's IRA. That has not changed particularly, but what they are proposing, and again it's a proposed regulation, is that some people were going to wait till the 10th year to take it all out, or year 8, 9, and 10, and now they're saying that probably someone will have to start taking it out right away following the year of the decedent's death, using a life expectancy table, but still the 10-year rule will apply.
So, obviously great information on IRAs, and IRA planning and gifting is a really big part of what we do at First Source and we do for our clients. So one of the other ways that we help clients in charitable intent is we take highly appreciated securities and have that used as a charitable intent. So Kurt, one of the ways to do that is through a donor advised fund. Can you talk a little bit about how a donor advised fund works?
Sure. So I wanted to show this flow chart that tells you really how a donor advised fund works, and it's become a quite popular tool when people are using highly appreciated securities, for example, or cash, to set up almost like a family foundation. This kind of has taken the place of that in some instances. And so this flow chart shows how that works. So me, let's say, as a donor, would contribute to a donor advised fund that I name, for example, the Thompson Family Fund, it could be. And I would put cash or highly appreciated securities into that fund, and then that has to be used over time to be paid out to charities or make grants to charities. I can't use it personally, my kids can't use it, but it's a great tool because I could get an immediate tax deduction when I contribute the cash or highly appreciated security, avoid the capital gain in the case of a highly appreciated stock, for example. And then the donor advised fund can be managed. Here at First Source, Paul and his group manage the money that's inside these donor advised funds, so it continues to be invested and earn money. And then I decide when money is paid out, and I don't have to pay it out at any point in time, and there's not a certain percentage limitation. It can be used over any period of time. And then if something happens to me, in my example, I could leave it to my kids to decide how they use it for charity.
Kurt, obviously some great information on income taxes, estate taxes, IRAs, and ultimately the donor advised fund. Partnering with our colleagues like Kurt at First Source really provides a holistic approach to managing your investment portfolios and taking care of our clients' needs. As always, thank you for the opportunity to serve you and your family, and have a great day.